past 5 years have been an extremely important time for Indigenous people. What was once an idea driven by the desire of First Nations leaders to have access to competitive capital to enable a better future for our land and our people. The First Nations Major Projects Coalition was developed to promote the shared interest of our members.
As a founding member of the coalition, our dream was to support First Nations who are wanting to do major projects.
I can recall us being in Fort St. John, and we were meeting with the people of Treaty 8, and we were pitching the concept of the First Nations Coalition. We walked in there and sat down, and 3 of the chiefs got up and left the table and said, "We're not interested." During my presentation to the table, I said, well, first of all, I'm a volunteer, and I'm going to remain a volunteer. And I said, I don't want anything from this. All I want to see is a success story. They were the first 3 chiefs to sign up to the coalition.
The First Nation Major Projects Coalition has provided tremendous support to our nation, especially with our geothermal project, Tude Ka. We're developing the first of its kind geothermal project in our province and in Canada. And so it's a really exciting time. I just got chills every time I talk about it.
The geothermal project is going to be good base load, 100% green energy. We're harvesting heat from the earth. That's what we're doing with that project.
We decided to join the coalition because of not only the leadership group that is involved already, but also because we needed to have some more capacity in making sure that we are involved in every single major project that's going through the territory.
The worst thing that can happen is for a project like that to proceed with us not being at the table. You know, we need to be there to be putting our foot down as the stewards of this territory.
Really leading the way for us to be at those tables that we would necessarily not have been a part of, and really helping us understand our role.
When we started seeing major projects and actually getting a seat at the table going through the territory, you know, these are life-changing projects potentially, and once we realize that there's an avenue for us to sit at the table, there is, you know, a discussion around reconciliation.
We're quite excited. We see that this juncture in our history is getting us closer to what has been a long-term goal of our First Nation, which is becoming sustainable, replacing what we lost by way of a traditional economy with a new diversified economy that creates work and own source revenue for our First Nation.
Having our sawmill in our community plays a very important part. It's one of those, if you don't have work for your people, they don't have the ways of buying things they need every day. We bring employment to our community. We have people working out of our sawmill. These sawmill workers are actually working and living down in the community.
The Indigenous people and the place I grew up in, all we managed was poverty. Today, they have a chance of managing wealth.
5 years ago, it seems like a lifetime ago. We had a good quote from one of the elders this past year. He said, "We've done more in the last 2 years than we have in the last 50. And a big part of that is because of economic development, building these revenue streams and creating these opportunities for members so that they can provide for their families. And it's a very important part of the balance of the health and wellness of every single one of our communities.
First Nations Major Projects Coalition is active on 7 major projects, and our project portfolio now exceeds a combined total capital cost of over $17 billion.
And the beauty of it is, it's risen above partisanship in politics. The present government is supporting it as well, and that's what makes it exciting.
One of the greatest things and challenges is learning how to separate business and politics when it comes to leadership in First Nations communities. I see the benefits of the First Nations projects being a non-political organization leading projects collectively and holistically.
The work that we want to do in terms of being involved in this major project will require expertise and services that are pretty expensive, and the coalition is going to be helping by making a contribution towards that expert advice that we require. It's great to have an organization out there that's free of cost to communities that'll help the community navigate these major projects, putting their best foot forward.
here we are today utilizing the services that they have to offer. And I think what's also important is because they are a First Nation organization, First Nation staff that understand the dynamics of First Nations. When we work with the staff from the coalition, they always reiterate to us that we are here to help you build capacity in your community.
And there's a lot of really brilliant people out there in the Indigenous community that can contribute greatly.
What's important with the major projects is that being a member allows free access to technical capacity when it comes to major projects in our communities.
Our community knows that it's the economic horse that's going to pull the social and cultural cart for us.
So our community lost our land. The government literally came and burnt it down in 1958. And so we were just repatriating our land. So having people move back to the community is really an important part of building economic wealth. You need the human capital. I'm actually the second resident. My cousin Art and his wife were here first, and just, repopulating the community. Now we're starting to see mining move into the region, and it's great to have the FNMPC on board to help support our community as we negotiate and make sure that we do the best deals we can for our community and balancing the incredible environment that we have here as well as the economic opportunities to make sure it's done well.
Where we are located right now is resource-rich and industry area, so one of our major money generators is forestry, and with that there's a lot of concerns with old growth over-harvesting. We're working with Western Forest Products, BCTS, on an integrated resource management plan to have a community-driven plan that will encompass all our goals, our values.
The Fort Nelson First Nation joined the coalition because they were really balancing the economic prosperity with the environmental stewardship. And we know how important that is when you're involved in a major project, whether that's happening in your territory or a neighboring community. Our rivers flow and we hit many communities, same as the air travels.
That opportunity to ensure that our kids and grandkids can practice our culture in a meaningful way, in a clean place, and that takes collaboration, that takes communication, that takes capacity. And with FNMPC, our center here, we've come together now to develop a partnership.
We want to make sure that the generations coming behind will have something to rely on, and education and training will all be part of what we've been trying to do. And it's not all about money, it's all about trying to have something respectful and decent for our people to look forward to.
It's been an extraordinary experience to be part of the FNMPC as an advisor and now on their board for the Advisory Services Center. Canada is finally waking up to the fact that if you engage and support community development, community ownership, the human capital development, as well as the business development, then we're going to have a stronger Canada. And our people have to be alongside corporate Canada and our governments to make sure that we are, in fact, proliferating side by side. That's what reconciliation is, and that's what the opportunity for this country is.
Climate change continues to disproportionately impact Indigenous communities. To build clean energy infrastructure and extraction projects means that Indigenous people play an integral role in achieving net zero and bettering Canada's economy.
Net zero. Some people say it's a little bit ambitious, but we don't think so. As First Peoples in this country and on these lands, we need to make sure that we're doing our part to find that balance, not only in our own communities, but in the broader region, which includes being stewards of the land.
As projects do move forward, proponents and government need to ensure that everybody takes responsibility for the future of our culture and our ceremonial opportunities for our grandchildren. That's what's going to keep us strong. So it's important for us that are involved in business development and project development to be mindful of that, to be mindful that that's where we come from. We come from Mother Earth, we come from the water, we come from the Creator, and it always has to be put first.
These values improve environmental and social outcomes for all Canadians today and for generations to come.
I would like to thank governments that have supported this right across the board, federal, provincial, and I'd like to thank industry as well for them coming to the table. And I want to thank from the bottom of my heart the Indigenous people of this country that they've placed trust in our organization so that we can work with them to build a better, stronger Canada.
But the story of First Nations Major Projects Coalition and the important work that our members are doing has only just begun. We are stronger together.